Hello, my name's Hoyt Hillsman. I'm a writer and a journalist and a former congressional candidate, as well as a contributor to national media, including Huffington Post and others. Lately, I've been looking at the likelihood of a civil war in the United States. I know we hear a lot of talk from the right, alt-right, and from the left as well about the possibility of a civil war. And also, among mainstream Americans, there seems to be less confidence and trust in the institutions of our government to prevent change to a more authoritarian form of government or possibly civil discord. We're already seeing some of the signs of this, and I just wanted to explore it in several short videos. I'm going to be basing my observations on two important books that have come out lately about the prospects for a civil war and what conditions might exist in our country that would lead to a civil war and what it would look like. Those books are by Barbara Walter and Stephen Menchie. And what I want to look at, first of all, is in this series is what are the preconditions for a civil war? And this is a civil war that we're thinking of that's not just in the United States, but based on the examination in the last 10 years of civil wars around the world, whether it's in Syria or Libya or some of the Baltic republics. What do those civil wars look like? And fortunately, there's quite a lot of research into this area. So we're going to look at the preconditions of a civil war, and a lot of it will depend on the state of the particular democracy. We'll uncover what are some surprising conclusions from that research. Just to give one example, the revolutions that have started in the Middle East and elsewhere weren't so much a result of the poor economic conditions or the oppression of poor people or the disenfranchisement of minorities, but more by the more privileged groups in the society who had lost their status or their sense of privilege. And these were some of the seeds that were sown for civil war. We're going to talk about that in depth and see how it relates to society in the United States in these later short videos. I'm also going to talk about what would a civil war look like in the United States. Most people think it would be impossible for a civil war to occur in the United States. And I think that's partly because they're thinking of the Civil War in the 19th century when it was two armies, a series of state governments that seceded, and these armies fought against each other in what was the first industrial war. If you look at civil wars today in many societies, they are not the clash of armies, but more in line with terrorist operations or popular uprisings rather than armies fighting each other, organized ideologies or armies. If you look at Egypt, Syria, throughout the world where you see civil unrest and revolutions, the Maidan in Ukraine, it's really a popular uprising supported by certain very specific elements of organized militias and factionalism. So in another series, in another short video, we're going to be talking about what a civil war might look like if it happened in the United States. We're also going to look at where we are in America in terms of the road to civil war. If we look at the preconditions for civil war around the world, and we can rank these just arbitrarily on a scale of 1 to 10, where does the United States lie? Quite clearly, we're not in a full-scale civil war, but are we in advanced preconditions for a civil war? And in fact, is there already a cold civil war that's going on, but that we're less aware of, that the mainstream of Americans are not cognizant of, or are actually in disbelief. And then finally, we'll look at the likelihood of a civil war developing in the United States and what might be done to prevent that. There are some pretty good prognostications, I would say, about the likelihood of civil war in the United States if we assume certain preconditions that exist for all civil wars. I know that many people, including myself, believe that the American institutions are strong enough to resist any widespread civil chaos or civil war. But there are a lot of elements that have changed just in the past couple of decades in terms of mass media, the internet, organizations, weaponry, the decline of democracy, the failure of leadership and government. These are all things that have occurred in the United States. And I think that others have made pretty good predictions about what the chances are for a civil war in the United States. So that's going to be what we'll look at over the next several episodes and small videos. I hope you will join me and for this interesting conversation. I think some of you may find this disturbing, the idea of discussing civil war, but I think it's better to look at realistically at where we are, what the chances are for this, without any undue hysteria or fear, but with a certain rational and objective look at the conditions. So thanks for joining, and I will see you in our next short video.